Okay, let's start reviewing the Legion Navy. So, as of now, Legion has been given a T1 Navy. They have a full roster of T1 ships. No T2 has been made yet, but they have the same roster as the other Corps and Armada. Very similar ships. There's some slight differences, but they have one extra ship, which is the long range artillery vessel. We'll talk about that later. But everything else is similar number of ship types, just one extra one. And let's just go through the list. First, we're going to start off with the construction boat. It has a little cheaper cost than the core or arm equivalents by 20 metal, but the build power is slightly less too. So just slightly less build power, slightly less energy generation, and yeah, not much to say there. The next we have the res boats. They are looking very close, 200, 150. Yep, they are roughly the same. Nothing to see with the res boats. They have a res boat. Let's go to the light assault corvette. 120 metal. It is a little cheaper than the Dolphin and a little more expensive than the Supporter. I think that it's generally better than the all of the counterparts for like the light boat. I think it can beat a Dolphin in combat if you kite a little bit. It has a little more range than the Dolphin, and it will en masse beat the Dolphin. And it also probably is better at fighting the Supporter as well. I haven't tested those because people don't tend to spam Supporters as core. But yeah, it's a possible ship for a composition destroyer and corvette composition. All right, next on the list, we're going to go over the frigate. This is the first major difference from Legion to the other factions. So the frigate does not attack land, which is pretty big because early on in Navy, you might use your ball of frigates to attack the coast. Right? You might attack right here with your frigates and deny mexes or push back LLTs. So you can't really use the frigate to do that. The frigate also isn't really that good at fighting other frigates. I was testing it. It's kind of like it'll stand its ground, but it's kind of disadvantaged versus the Armada frigate or especially the core frigate. It's cheaper, but it's just metal for metal. The core frigates are going to beat these, and they're you just don't want to spam frigates as Legion. You just want enough frigates to give you some protection against submarines, and if you see more submarines, you need to make more frigates. They are very good against submarines. They're cost effective, and they'll beat submarines at metal cost. All right. So that's frigates. Next we have the destroyer, the hybrid heat ray drone carrier destroyer. This is probably the best Legion, at least what I've for my testing. This is like the one that's the backbone of the Legion fleet. It has a heat ray that is pretty good. I don't know if it'll fire. Yeah. So it fires this heat ray, which, does not miss like the destroyer shots of like, the other counterparts. So it has this shot, it doesn't miss because it shoots like a laser or a heat ray. The drones provide vision, and you could get them shot down and cost you some metal, but the drones are pretty good. If you get a couple of these destroyers, you can use the drones to kill boats as well. And so it's just a very solid ship. You can kite with it in a battle. And so you might get 3 of these in a composition with 2 frigates and maybe your comms underneath repairing stuff. And if you get in a fight with the other navy, you're going to try to like peel away with your destroyers while they're shooting and just try to kite while you shoot stuff down with your drones. And if they're not chasing you, you can kind of attack with the drones as well. And the drones get some open up some new possibilities. We'll talk about that later. All right, next we have the submarine. Legion has the cheapest submarine at only 340 metal, and to compare, the Armada's cheapest sub is 440, and the core sub is 580, but the core sub is a monster. Um, Speed is slowest at 50. Also, yeah, just it's a little slower than even the core sub, and the DPS is 93, higher than the arm sub and a little lower than the core sub. That makes sense. Yeah, I haven't played with these too much. They seem like they might go good to support destroyers, and yeah, we'll have to test that out. But they are the cheapest sub, and you could kind of spam them with your destroyers to provide vision and protection from frigate rushes, and then you just kind of fight your destroyers against their stuff and use the subs to defend against frigate rushing. All right. Finally, we have the anti-air boat. This isn't final, there's one more boat, but the final useful boat is the anti-air boat, and it's basically like the other anti-air boats, but it cannot shoot anything at the ground. Like, these can attack the ground, this guy cannot attack the ground. This carrying attacks up and down, but look at the cost, 210. This is 150. This one has a radar of 1,000. This one has a radar of 1,000. This one has a radar of 1,200. Slightly bigger. Don't know how much that really matters, but the DPS is 119, and the DPS here. Let's just look at the anti-air DPS of 57 for anti-air. This one has a DPS of 23 for. Sorry, for anti-air it has a DPS of 60 or 120 for burst. This one's anti-air is 57 and 80, and then this one here has anti-air of 119.72. So this is a lot more anti-air capability at the 330. So one of these is gonna be all your fleet needs to protect from the early shuriken play. And finally, we have the Octeres. This is the long-range cluster artillery vessel. It costs 1450, which is a lot of metal, almost as much as a upgrade to it. If you build two of these, you might as well have just built a T2 lab. This ship shoots a cluster attack. It's got really long range. In a Navy battle, I found it very underwhelming, mainly because the enemy boats are chasing you and they can juke. Maybe as numbers get more critical mass, maybe it's better, but I haven't had much luck with this boat. It might just be a case of Navy goes to T2 too early a lot of times, but it might just need further testing. Okay, so it does pretty good damage against land units. Fire a shot into a sleeping fleet of frigates. So let's say the frigates were sleeping. Let's see how much damage we can do against the frigates in one shot. Okay. So that's what one shot does against the sleeping ball of frigates. 4,500 health. Yeah. So it's okay. It's just kind of that's the shot. I'll do one more just for sake of it. Kind of hard to get these shots to happen. So the secondary explosions do a little bit of extra damage, but there you go. That's a sleeping fleet. All right. So let's talk about some other things. Right now, the state of Legion. So as my testing has gone, I found the Legion T1 kind of interesting, and I would like it to have I would like a T2 Legion, because a lot of times when the game ends up in a stalemate and you've been playing Legion, you just switch to T2 boats and it's just standard core teching at that point, and it's just kind of it defeats the purpose of having Legion, because you're not able to see what the later phase Legion boats are. You're just playing a wonky T1 phase and then going into standard core T2. So I haven't been that happy with the way that is. I really think a Legion T2 Navy would really add to the experience. The other problem we have in games is that the frontline in Legion enabled lobbies that are high OS, the frontline tends to fold either towards you or against you within about a first, I'd say 6 to 12 minutes. Usually the front line is already so collapsed that the game's kind of decided by the front. And sometimes you can help with your little core navy or even with your Legion Navy to hold your end if you've won your lane. But a lot of times you aren't able to win your lane as quickly as you can with a standard core play. Just playing standard core Navy, you can win your lane a little more quickly than as Legion. But in a fair fight, Legion seems to be balanced. It's just not able to close out a game real quick. The Legion Navy is really good at kiting, and so I think if you're like a bit outgunned, the Legion Navy can just keep retreating, and it does better kiting and retreating than some of the other factions. But it's just like a slow kill, so it takes forever to kill your opponent, kind of like when you're playing Armada. And I've been like, I had some fights here where I had more boats than my opponent. This time I'm fighting against Legion, but I was trying out the corvettes and the destroyer corvette mix. And I just kind of I'm taking this fight, and it just feels like as we're doing this, I'm having to play harder, and I'm not really decisively winning. I ended up com bombing the fleet just to kind of win the fight, but again, like, we don't want to have to resort to that to win fights, but it just kind of feels a lot of the times like you have to outplay your opponent to win as Legion in the Navy. That's kind of what's been happening in a lot of the cases. We're just using the commander to, get a com bomb to turn the tide of battle. Yeah, it's just kind of what it feels like, is we have to outplay our opponents a lot. But if you do close out your game, the Legion destroyers are neat, as you can attack and siege the shore pretty nicely. Attacking the Geo directly with your destroyers is nice. The AA can be a problem, and that is something that you'll have to adapt for. You'll have to use your own AA boats to shoot down enemy fighters that are killing your destroyers' drones. But if they get enough critical mass of anti-air, the destroyer loses a lot of its utility because it's just feeding metal with those drones. And yep, that's just about it.